Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are turning back the clock, and I don't mean to the 80s or the Victorian era. We were going way, way back.
All the way back.
We're talking about a figure who is, and this isn't an exaggeration, literally the prototype for every conqueror, every emperor who came after him. I mean, if you think about human history as a series of operating systems, this guy is version 1.0 of the concept of empire.
That's a really good way to put it.
Yeah.
It's a fundamental paradigm shift in, how human beings organize themselves.
Right.
Before this point, you had city-states. You had powerful cities, sure, Uruk or Kish, but they were generally self-contained bubbles.
They stayed in their own lane, so to speak.
Exactly. They might fight over a border or, a water right, but that was about it. Then this man comes along, and suddenly the whole map changes. You have a central government controlling a massive, multi-ethnic territory.
And we are talking about Sargon of Akkad, Sargon the Great. The stack of research we have on him is just fascinating because it's this mix of, hard archaeological evidence.
Like actual cuneiform inscriptions.
Yeah, actual stone tablets and these incredible myths that were written down centuries later. But here's the hook that really got me. Sargon is often identified as the first person in recorded history to rule over an empire. The first emperor.
Right.
But there is a massive mystery right at the center of his story.
There is, and it's a paradox that, it still frustrates archaeologists to this day. Sargon is the king of Akkad. Akkad was his capital, the center of this new universe he claimed to rule.
The capital of the world.
The capital of his world, for sure. We have texts describing ships docking there from distant lands. We have tributes flowing into it. We have administrative records. But to this day, the city of Akkad has never been archaeologically identified.
You're kidding.
No, we literally do not know where the most important city of the 24th century BC was located.
That's wild. It's like knowing all about George Washington but not being able to find Washington, D.C.
It's very much like that. It's a huge blank spot on the map.
So, our mission today is to unpack this legend. We're going to look at how a man of, supposedly humble origins, the son of a gardener, rose up to become the king of the universe, founded a dynasty that lasted a century, and became the legendary figure that Mesopotamian kings modeled themselves after for 2,000 years.
And to do that, we're drawing from a really diverse set of sources. We have his own historical inscriptions, or at least, later copies of them. We have the Sumerian king list, later Babylonian chronicles, and even these legendary texts found in the library of Ashurbanipal that read more like literature than straight history.
Okay, so let's start at the very beginning. Let's talk about the name Sargon. It just sounds strong, doesn't it? It sounds like a conqueror. But when you translate it, it feels like he's trying to tell us something specific.
Or maybe convince us of something. The name Sargon is actually the biblical or Hebrew form. The original Akkadian is Aruukin, or Arukan. And if we break that down, Sharu means king, and the second part, kinum or yukin, means to confirm or to establish or to be true.
So, the king is true.
Effectively, yes. The king is established, or the legitimate king.
The legitimate king. Okay, let's unpack that. Because if you have to walk around calling yourself the legitimate king, doesn't that sort of imply that maybe you aren't?
Precisely. It is the classic irony of the usurper.
Right.
A king who inherits the throne by blood, he usually have a name that honors a god or, an ancestor. But a man who takes the throne by force, he needs a regnal name that serves as propaganda.
So it's a title he gives himself.
It's his brand. He's asserting his legitimacy every single time someone says his name. It's a constant reminder to his subjects, I am supposed to be here.
It's like a politician's slogan, but it's his actual name.
Exactly. And it's worth noting that etymological connection, the name Sargon, appears once in the Bible, in Isaiah 20.1. That reference is actually to the much later Assyrian king, Sargon II, who took the name in honor of our guy, Sargon of Akkad. But the root is the same. It's about established, unquestionable authority.
So he's got the propaganda name. But what about his backstory? Because the sources we have paint a picture that sounds, suspiciously familiar to anyone who knows their Sunday school stories or Greek mythology.
This is where we get into the Sargon birth legend.
Okay.
And we have to be careful with the timeline here. This specific text is Neo-Assyrian from the 7th century BC.
So long after he lived.
Very long after. But it purports to be his autobiography. It starts with Sargon saying, quote, "My mother was a high priestess. My father I knew not."
A high priestess mother and an unknown father. That's already a bit scandalous for the time.
It is. The text says she bore him in secret. And because she couldn't keep him, Perhaps because of her vows as a priestess, she placed him in a basket of rushes, sealed the lid with bitumen to make it waterproof, and cast him into the river.
Okay, stop right there. Basket of rushes, sealed with bitumen, floating down the river. That is literally the story of Moses. I mean, word for word.
It is strikingly similar, and scholars have pointed this out for over a century. It's a recurring motif in ancient literature, a trope that we call the infant birth exposure.
It's a trope.
A very common one. You see it with Moses, obviously. You see it with the Indian hero Karna in the Mahabharata. You see it with Oedipus in Greek myth. The child of special destiny is abandoned to the elements, usually water, and is rescued by someone of humble status.
So it's a standard hero's journey opening scene.
Essentially, yes. It solves a narrative problem for a self-made king. It gives him a mysterious, possibly divine origin, but it also explains why he grew up among the common people.
So who finds him in this story?
In Sargon's case, he's fished out of the river by a man named Aki. The text calls him a drawer of water.
Like an irrigator or someone who carries water?
Probably. So Aki takes the baby in, raises him as his own son, and eventually appoints him as his gardener.
So the future king of the universe starts out pruning hedges and watering plants.
Exactly. Yeah. But this is part of the mystique. He isn't born into the palace with a silver spoon. He works the land. He's one of the people. And the legend says that while he was a gardener, the goddess Ishtar granted him her love.
Ishtar is the goddess of love and war, right? That's a powerful ally to have.
The most powerful.
Yeah.
That divine favor is the spark that launches his career. It tells the people, I wasn't chosen by the old corrupt kings. I was chosen by the goddess herself while I was working in the dirt. It's a powerful narrative.
I love that. But, okay, let's look at the Sumerian king list and the Sumerian Sargon legend, because that gives us a slightly more political stepping stone. It says he wasn't just a gardener forever. He became the cupbearer to Ur-Zababa, the king of Kish.
Right. And we really need to clarify the role of a cupbearer. It sounds like a waiter.
It does. Can you get me a refill?
But in the ancient Near East, it was a position of immense trust. You were the last line of defense against poison.
Ah, of course.
You stood right next to the king during feasts and councils. You heard everything. You had the king's ear. It's more like being the chief of staff or maybe the head of the Secret Service.
So he's in the inner circle. He's in the room where it happens. But the relationship between Sargon and his boss, Ur-Zababa, gets complicated.
Very complicated. The text describes a kind of psychological drama. It starts when Sargon has a dream.
Okay.
In this dream, the goddess Inanna, who is the Sumerian counterpart to the Akkadian Ishtar, is drowning King Ur-Zababa in a river of blood.
Subtle.
Not at all. And Sargon, perhaps as a bit of a power move, or maybe out of genuine fear, tells the king about this dream.
I can't imagine that went over well.
No. Naturally, Ur-Zababa is terrified. He sees this as a clear omen that his cupbearer, this guy standing next to him every day, is going to overthrow him.
So what does he do?
He hatches a plot. He tries to have Sargon killed by the chief smith, a man named Belistikal. But Inanna, his divine protector, is watching out for him.
So the assassination fails.
It fails. So Ur-Zababa, now getting desperate, tries a different tactic. This is another classic literary trope that scholars call the Uriah letter, which you see in the Bible with King David, or the Greek story of Bellerophon.
How does that one work?
The king sends Sargon on a mission. He's to deliver a clay tablet to another king, a very powerful one named Lugal-zage-si of Uruk. But the message inscribed on the tablet says, effectively, kill the bearer of this message.
That is cold. Here, carry your own death warrant. It's the ultimate test of loyalty and a trap.
The text actually breaks off there, but, well, history tells us the answer. Sargon obviously survives. He not only survives the trap, but he eventually challenges Lugal-zage-si directly.
And this is the pivotal moment. Lugal-zage-si wasn't just some minor player.
Not at all. He was a powerhouse. He had already conquered much of Sumer and unified several city-states under his rule. He was the big boss of the entire region.
So this is the heavyweight title fight. Sargon versus Lugal-zage-si, the upstart versus the establishment.
And Sargon doesn't just win. He humiliates him. The inscriptions are absolutely brutal. Sargon claims he brought Lugal-zage-si in a collar to the gate of Enlil.
He put him in a dog collar.
Essentially a neck stock. He dragged the former most powerful man in Sumer to the holy gate of the chief god Enlil in the city of Nippur.
Wow.
This was incredibly symbolic. Enlil was the god who granted kingship. By dragging the defeated king to Enlil's gate, Sargon was making a very public statement. The gods have rejected him. I am the new order.
And then he goes on a demolition spree.
He does. He tears down the great defensive walls of Uruk, Ur, and Enimar.
Why tear down the walls? Is that just to show off your strength?
It's strategic. It's more than just showing off. In a world of city-states, the wall is your independence. It's what allows you to say no to your neighbor. By tearing down the walls, Sargon renders these cities completely defenseless.
They can no longer resist him.
Exactly. They're now totally dependent on his central authority for protection. He's fundamentally changing the power dynamic.
And then he does something that I think is one of the most cinematic moments in ancient history. He marches his army all the way south.
All the way to the Persian Gulf.
Which they called the Lower Sea.
Yes, the Lower Sea. And then the inscription says he washed his weapons in the sea.
That image just stays with you. It's like, I have run out of land to conquer. I'm washing the blood off in the ocean because I own everything from the north all the way to the water.
That is exactly the message. He conquered the entire territory from Lagash to the coast. But he didn't stop there. This is where the concept of empire really takes shape. He didn't just want Sumer, the traditional heartland. He wanted what the texts call the four quarters.
The four quarters. That sounds like he's trying to encompass the entire compass. What does that actually cover in geographical terms?
He claimed dominion from the Upper Sea, which is the Mediterranean, all the way to the Lower Sea, the Persian Gulf. He pushed north into Upper Mesopotamia and the Levant. The inscriptions mention specific places like Mori, Yarmoudi, and Ebla.
And Ebla is way up in modern-day Syria. That's a huge distance.
It's a massive territory. He pushed as far as the Cedar Forest, which is likely the Amanus Mountains in what's now Lebanon, and the Silver Mountain, which might be the Taurus Mountains in Turkey.
Why go that far? Was it just ego, wanting more land?
It was economics, pure and simple. Mesopotamia, Sumer especially, is rich in mud and grain, but it has almost no timber and no metal.
So you can't build big temples or forge good weapons.
Exactly. To build a monumental empire, you need cedar for roofs and ships, and you need silver and copper for weapons and tools and trade. He wasn't just raiding, he was securing the supply chain. He was seizing the source of the materials.
And he went east too, right? Into the area of modern-day Iran.
He did. He campaigned against Elam and Marhashi. These were tough, mountainous regions that had always been a threat to the Mesopotamian plains. He even lists the leaders he defeated, guys with names like Lu'ushin of Elam and Sidgau of Parashum. He styled himself king of the world and conqueror of Elam. I mean, the man was fighting on multiple fronts and winning everywhere.
So he's conquered the world, or at least the world as they knew it. But conquering is one thing, keeping it is another. How did he actually run this massive, multi-ethnic, multilingual territory? You can't just be everywhere at once.
And this is where Sargon really innovates. You see, you can't run an empire with a temporary militia of farmers who need to go home for the harvest.
No, the rebellion starts the minute you turn your back.
Right. You need professionals.
Mm-hmm.
The texts give us this one fascinating, very specific detail. Sargon had a court or standing army of 5,400 men who ate bread daily before him.
5,400 men eating dinner with the boss every single night. That's a lot of bread.
It's a huge logistical operation, but it implies they were fully supported by the state. This is a standing army, a professionalized military force, loyal to him personally, always ready to deploy.
That's a massive innovation.
It was a massive innovation for the time. It allowed him to project power instantly, anywhere in the empire, to crush revolts before they could even get started.
And that kind of stability must have been great for business.
It was fantastic for business. Once the region is pacified, trade can flourish. We have records of ships docking at his capital, Akkad, from very distant lands. From Dilmun, which we're pretty sure is modern Bahrain. From Magan, which is likely Oman famous for its copper. And from Meluhha.
And Meluhha is the Indus Valley civilization, right, in modern Pakistan and India.
That's the scholarly consensus, yes. So you have goods, raw materials, flowing from the Indus Valley all the way to Akkad in central Mesopotamia. It was an early form of globalization, all secured by Sargon's military dominance.
Which brings us back to that mystery city, Akkad. Akkad. We know he had ships docking there. We know he had 5,400 soldiers eating there, but we still don't know where it is. Do we have any idea if he built it from scratch?
Well, that's a subject of debate among scholars. Some later texts, like the Widener Chronicles, say he built Babylon in front of Akkad, or made a counterpart of Babylon next to Akkad. This kind of suggests he was the founder. But there was a discovery, an inscription dated to the first year of a king named Shakushana, who almost certainly ruled before Sargon. And this inscription mentions Akkad.
So the city, or at least the place, might have existed before Sargon, and he just moved in and renovated.
It's very possible. He could have seized a minor town that was strategically located and then expanded it into his grand imperial capital. But because we haven't found the site, we can't see the layers of occupation to know for sure. It remains one of archaeology's great holy grails.
Man, imagine finding that. It would be the discovery of the century. Now let's talk about the dynasty. He didn't just rule alone. He set up a family business.
He absolutely did. We know his wife's name, Queen Teshlutum. But the real star of the family, arguably, is his daughter.
And Hedwana.
And Hedwana. Yes, you cannot tell the story of Sargon without her. He appointed her as the high priestess of the moon god Nana in the city of Ur.
And this wasn't just a ceremonial role, was it? This was a power move.
A brilliant political move. Ur was a very old, very powerful, and very proud conquered Sumerian city. Placing his Akkadian daughter as the highest religious authority, there was a way to fuse the Sumerian religious tradition with his new Akkadian political power.
Right.
But Hedwana is famous for another, even more incredible reason. She is the first named author in history.
The first one we know by name, male or female. She's the first person to sign her work.
Correct. We have her name. She composed these beautiful, complex, ritual hymns, like the Exaltation of Inanna, that were so powerful they were copied and used in temples for centuries after her death.
Yeah.
She's a major literary figure. She helped unify the theology of the empire by, for instance, blending the Sumerian goddess Inanna with the Akkadian goddess Ishtar into one coherent figure.
That's amazing. So the father conquers the bodies, the daughter conquers the minds and souls.
A very effective 1-2 punch for building an empire. And the dynasty continued. Sargon was succeeded by his son Rimush, then his other son Manishtushu, and then came his grandson Naram-Sin, who ruled the empire at its absolute height of power and glory.
I want to touch on one technical thing that I found really interesting in the notes. The way they tracked time back then. They didn't use numbers like the year 2330 BC.
No, they used year names. Each year was named after the most significant event that happened.
So you'd have the year in which Sargon went to Sumerum.
Or the year in which Mari was destroyed. It's like checking the news headlines to figure out what year it is.
Oh, is it the year we destroyed Elam? No, that was last year. This is the year we fixed the big canal.
Precisely. And interestingly, for Sargon's incredibly long reign, we only have 4 specific year names that have been preserved. And they mostly relate to his military campaigns against Elam, Mari, and Sumerum.
So we've got the rise, the conquest, the administration, but no empire lasts forever. And Sargon's later years, well, they weren't exactly a peaceful retirement, were they?
Not at all.
Yeah.
The Chronicle of Early Kings, which is a later Babylonian text, paints a really chaotic picture of his twilight years. It states that in his old age, all the lands revolted against him, and they besieged him in Akkad.
Wow. They brought the fight right to his doorstep. After all that, they tried to trap him in his own capital.
They did. But Sargon was still Sargon. The text says he went onward to battle, broke the siege, and completely crushed the rebellion. He destroyed their wide-spreading host. He wasn't going to go down quietly.
But there's a darker turn in the text, right? A sense that maybe he crossed a line, that he got too arrogant.
This brings us to the classic theme of hubris. Later chronicles, written by Babylonians, attribute his troubles and the eventual fall of his dynasty to a specific sin he committed.
What did he do?
The text says Sargon dug up the soil of the pit of Babylon to build his own city.
He stole dirt from Babylon. I don't get it. Why is that such a big deal?
Well, the implication is that he removed soil from the trenches or the sacred foundations of Babylon to create a counterpart, a new Babylon in Akkad. He was trying to physically and maybe magically appropriate the sacred power of Babylon, an ancient and holy city, for his own upstart capital.
And the god of Babylon, Marduk, was not happy about this.
Not happy at all. The Chronicle says that because of this evil which he had committed, the great god Marduk became angry.
And you don't want to make Marduk angry.
Definitely not. The Chronicle says Marduk destroyed Sargon's people with a great famine. It says, quote, "From the rising of the sun unto the setting of the sun, they opposed him and gave him no rest." It suggests a kind of spiritual rot at the core of the empire because the king disrespected the traditional gods in their holy places.
It's so interesting how history gets written by the victors, or at least by the survivors. Why is there a famine? Well, remember when the king stole that dirt 10 years ago? That's why.
That's how the ancient mind made sense of causality. It was a theological explanation for political and environmental disaster. If the king loses the mandate of heaven, nature itself rebels against him.
Despite the famine and the revolts, the memory of Sargon didn't fade away. If anything, it got stronger over time. He became the model king.
For 2,000 years, Assyrian and Babylonian kings saw him as the ultimate ancestor. If you were a king in Mesopotamia, you wanted to be the next Sargon. We even have a Neo-Assyrian text where Sargon speaks in the first person as if from the grave, challenging future kings.
What does he say?
He says, "Let him rule the black-headed people. Let him ascend the upper mountains." It's a challenge. I did all this, can you?
And one king, Nabonidus, took that really literally. He was actually doing archaeology, wasn't he?
He was. In the 6th century BC, that's nearly 2,000 years after Sargon lived, the Neo-Babylonian king Nabonidus conducted excavations specifically to find Sargon's palaces. He wanted to physically connect himself to that ancient legacy.
It's wild to think of an ancient king acting as an archaeologist for an even more ancient king. And Sargon's influence might even stretch into the Bible.
There are scholarly suggestions, that the biblical figure of Nimrod might be inspired by Sargon, or perhaps his grandson Naram-Sin.
Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord.
Exactly. He's described as a unifier of Babylonia, a great builder of cities. The geographic scope and the legendary status certainly fit the Sargon archetype.
And the legend hasn't stopped. We see Sargon popping up in pop culture in some really random places.
It's a very eclectic list. For instance, you have the movie The Scorpion King, Rise of a Warrior, where Sargon is the main villain, and he's played by Randy Couture.
The UFC fighter.
The very same. He's portrayed as a villain who wields black magic. Historically accurate, not in the slightest, but it shows the name still carries this immense weight of power and conquest.
And Star Trek. I couldn't believe this one.
Star Trek, the original series, there's an episode called Return to Tomorrow featuring a powerful, telepathic alien entity named Sargon, who once ruled a mighty empire millions of years ago. The writers clearly just grabbed the name to signify ancient ultimate power.
I also saw that the band They Might Be Giants has a song called The Mesopotamians.
They do. And they mention Sargon along with Hammurabi, Ashurbanipal, and Gilgamesh. It's a very catchy way to learn your ancient history, actually.
And for the gamers out there, he's in Age of Empires II.
Yes, in the Return of Rome expansion pack. You can play a whole campaign as Sargon of Akkad. It's actually a pretty decent way to visualize the geography of his conquests.
And just to be thorough with our sources, because it comes up, the name Sargon of Akkad also appears in modern internet culture. It was adopted as a pseudonym by Carl Benjamin, a British political commentator and YouTuber.
Right, and it's just another example that shows that the name itself, Sargon, has become a brand of its own, almost separate from the historical man.
It's become a symbol.
It is detached from the history and become a symbol of authority, antiquity, and sometimes just raw, world-changing power.
So let's bring it all home. What does this all mean? We started with a gardener and a basket, and we ended with the king of the universe.
Sargon represents the transition from the local to the imperial. He set the template. Before him, you fought for your city. After him, kings fought for the world. He established the bureaucracy, the standing army, the dynastic succession, all the tools that would define the ancient Near East for the next 15 centuries. He proved that a central government could control a vast, multi-ethnic territory.
He created the rules of a game that empires have been playing ever since. But I have to say, I can't stop thinking about that Soil of Babylon story.
It's the most provocative detail in the whole legend, isn't it?
Yeah. Why did he do it? The Chronicle says he dug up the soil of the pit of Babylon to make a counterpart in Akkad. Was it an attempt to, I don't know, magically transfer the power of an older holy site to his new capital? Was he trying to clone the holiness of Babylon? Or was it, as the Babylonian priests later claimed, just an act of supreme arrogance?
We'll never know for sure.
It just suggests that even the king of the universe couldn't escape the judgment of history or the gods. You can conquer the entire world, you can wash your weapons in the sea, but if you mess with the wrong Bert, history might just turn against you.
A lesson for emperors of all ages.
That's it for this deep dive into the world's first emperor. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.